Loneliness is not just an emotion, it can feel like a wound you can't see. Studies even show that the brain reacts to loneliness in ways strikingly similar to physical pain. And today, we're going to uncover why. We'll explore the hidden psychology of loneliness, why it hurts so deeply, and how understanding it can help us heal. But before we begin, a quick note. This video is inspired by real psychological research, case studies, and scientific evidence. We've simplified complex ideas into clear stories so they're easier to understand and apply. Please remember, this content is for educational purposes only. It is not therapy, medical, or professional advice. If you're struggling with serious challenges, consider speaking with a qualified mental health professional. Now let's step into our story. Meet David. He's sitting alone at his kitchen table, staring at a half-empty coffee mug. The house around him is silent, too silent. And in that silence, the weight of loneliness feels heavier than words can describe. He'd scrolled through his phone a dozen times, but no messages came. He wasn't hungry, he wasn't tired, he just felt hollow. If you've ever felt that kind of loneliness, you know it's not just in your head. It aches in your chest, it squeezes your stomach, it feels heavy in your bones. Scientists now understand why. Loneliness doesn't just feel like physical pain. To the brain, it is pain. So why does loneliness hurt so much? Why do our minds and bodies treat social isolation like an open wound? And more importantly, what can we actually do about it? In this episode, we'll explore the hidden psychology of loneliness. You'll hear David's story, uncover fascinating research from neuroscience and psychology, and learn practical strategies to heal from isolation and build deeper, more meaningful connections. Loneliness isn't just a mood, it's biology. To understand why, we need to look at human evolution. Thousands of years ago, survival depended on connection. Alone, a person could be attacked, starve, or freeze to death. Together, humans hunted, built shelter, and defended one another. The brain adapted to make social connection as vital as food and water. That's why Dr. John Cacioppo, one of the leading researchers on loneliness, described it as a social hunger. Just as hunger pushes you to find food, loneliness pushes you to seek connection. In fact, brain imaging studies show that when people feel rejected or excluded, the same areas of the brain activate as when they experience physical pain, particularly the anterior cingulate cortex. That's why a breakup can feel like a punch to the chest. Why sitting alone at lunch in high school can sting like a burn. The brain makes no distinction. Pain is pain. For David, the pain was subtle at first. After his divorce, he kept busy, work filled his days, streaming shows filled his nights. Friends checked in here and there, but slowly calls became less frequent. Invitations stopped. And one evening, David realized it had been weeks since anyone asked how he was doing. At the grocery store, he lingered at the checkout, making small talk with the cashier just to hear his own voice in conversation. He started visiting the same cafe daily, not because of the coffee, but because the barista remembered his name. He wasn't physically injured, but his nervous system told a different story. Elevated stress hormones, restless sleep, constant fatigue. Loneliness was gnawing at his health in ways he couldn't yet see. This isn't just David's story. It's a global epidemic. According to research, chronic loneliness increases the risk of heart disease, stroke, and even dementia. It weakens the immune system, making people more vulnerable to illness. Some studies suggest it's as harmful to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Why? Because loneliness keeps the body in a state of stress. Cortisol, the stress hormone, rises, inflammation spreads through the body, the immune system shifts into survival mode, prioritizing immediate defense over long-term repair. Over months and years, this takes a toll. But the cruelest part is psychological. Loneliness alters perception. It makes the world seem colder, people seem less trustworthy, and connections feel harder to reach. In other words, the lonelier you feel, the harder it becomes to stop being lonely. Here's the paradox. Some of the most intelligent, successful, and kind people suffer the deepest loneliness. Why? Because loneliness doesn't discriminate. You can have 100 social media followers, dozens of co-workers, even a family under your roof, and still feel utterly alone. Psychologists explain this through the difference between social isolation, being physically alone, and perceived isolation, feeling alone even when surrounded by others. What matters is not the number of people in your life, but whether you feel truly seen, understood, and valued. David learned this the hard way. He joined group activities, gym classes, networking events, even online communities, but instead of feeling connected, he felt lonelier. Why? Because those connections were shallow. He was around people, but no one really knew him. The gap between presence and connection was enormous. Loneliness isn't just personal, it's cultural. Modern life has quietly engineered isolation. People move away from family for work. Neighborhoods are quieter. Technology gives the illusion of connection while often deepening disconnection. Sociologist Robert Putnam famously described this in his book Bowling Alone. Communities that once thrived on shared spaces, churches, clubs, local sports, have declined. Instead of bowling leagues, people bowl alone. Instead of long dinners, people eat in front of screens. And here's the irony: the more connected society becomes online, the more disconnected people feel offline. So why does loneliness physically ache? Neuroscience offers the answer. Social pain shares neural pathways with physical pain. This overlap was discovered in experiments where people were socially excluded in virtual games. Their brains lit up the same way as if they had burned their hand. Even more fascinating, studies show that acetaminophen, the common painkiller, can reduce feelings of social pain. Yes, the same pill you take for a headache can dull the sting of rejection. Of course, that's not a solution. But it proves the brain treats loneliness as a wound. So how do we escape? Step 1. Awareness. You can't heal what you don't see. Start by naming loneliness for what it is. Not weakness, not failure, but a biological signal. David began by admitting to himself, "I'm lonely." That honesty was the first crack in the wall. Step 2. Quality over quantity. One deep, meaningful friendship is more powerful than 50 shallow connections. Psychologist Robin Dunbar, known for Dunbar's number, found humans can maintain about 150 social relationships, but only a handful are truly intimate. Focus on those few. Step 3. Practice micro-connections. Small interactions, a hello to a neighbour, a smile to a stranger, a short chat with the barista, reduce loneliness. They remind the brain you belong to a social world. David began making these a daily habit, and slowly, the silence of his days softened. Step 4. Rewrite the narrative. Loneliness convinces you you're unworthy. Counter that lie. Cognitive behavioral therapy shows that changing self-talk reshapes feelings. Instead of "nobody cares," try "connection is possible. I'm learning to find it." Step 5. Reconnect with purpose. Purpose is the antidote to isolation. Volunteering, mentoring, joining groups built around shared values. These create bonds that go deeper than small talk. David found this when he began volunteering at a local animal shelter. The dogs didn't care about his past. The other volunteers didn't need him to be perfect. They just needed him to show up, and he did. It didn't happen overnight. But slowly, David's life shifted. The quiet house still stood. The mornings were still slow, but the weight in his chest lifted. He had people to call, people who cared. And when he looked in the mirror, he no longer saw just emptiness. He saw someone worthy of connection. Loneliness is not weakness. It's not failure. It's the most human signal of all, the need to belong. Just as hunger drives us to eat, loneliness drives us to connect. Ignoring it only deepens the wound. Listening to it is the beginning of healing. So ask yourself, where in your life do you feel the ache of loneliness? And the harder question, what small step can you take today to answer it? Because here's the truth. Loneliness hurts because connection heals. And the moment you choose to reach out, to call, to share, to listen, you begin to stitch that wound closed. If this episode spoke to you, consider subscribing and joining us for more. Next time, we'll dive into another hidden corner of the human mind, one that might just change the way you see yourself and the people around you. Until then, remember this. The cure for loneliness isn't just people, it's connection. And connection starts with a single step.